I'm Peggy. 32. A successful woman with a calm voice, expensive taste, and one very complicated past. Growing up, I was what you'd call the responsible one. Not the golden child. Not the favorite. Just the one expected to clean up everyone else's mess. My brother Chase was the prince. He could wreck Dad's car and somehow get a new one the next day. I got straight A's and was told to stop showing off. Every single family decision came down to money. And by money, I mean mine. If I babysat, that money belonged to the household. If I got a scholarship, that freed up my parents' savings to buy a new grill. They never asked. They just took. I learned early, in my house, love was conditional, and finances were a power play. So when I graduated early, landed a high-paying job in consulting, and bought my own apartment, I thought they'd finally see me as an adult. I was wrong. They still treated me like the family ATM. It started small. A few hundred for Chase's emergency rent. Then a couple thousand when Dad's truck suddenly died. No thank you. No repayment. Just the silent expectation that I'd keep delivering. But I did it. For years. Until one phone call changed everything. "Hey, honey," Mom said sweetly. "Your father and I were talking. We're adjusting our will." Ah. There it was. The strings. "Is that so?" I said, casually. "Well, yes," she said with a chuckle. "We've decided the house will go to Chase. And the savings too. You understand, right? You don't need it. You're fine. Let me be clear. I wasn't asking for anything. I didn't expect an inheritance. But hearing it out loud like that? Like I was some sterile machine made of money, unworthy of even consideration? That stung. I stayed silent for a moment. Then said, "Sure. Of course. Makes sense." She laughed like we were best friends. It was that night I decided. I was done playing the quiet provider. They thought I didn't need anything? Fine. Then they could see what life looked like without me. I stopped picking up their calls. Let texts pile up. And within a month, it started. Chase's car broke down again. "Hey, Pegs," he texted. "Any chance you could help me out? I'll pay you back. Promise." Ignored. Then came Dad. "Need a little help with property taxes. It's just temporary." Ignored. They weren't used to this. They were used to me always being available. Like an app you don't appreciate until it crashes. I expected guilt trips. What I didn't expect was the begging. One Saturday, I was enjoying a quiet brunch alone, something they always mocked me for, by the way, when my phone rang. It was Mom. I let it go to voicemail. An hour later, she called again. Then texted. "Peggy, please. We're in trouble. The bank sent a notice. We could lose the house. I know you're upset, but you're our daughter." There it was. Not, "We love you." Not, "We're sorry." Just, "You're our daughter," as if that entitled them to everything. I zoomed in on the photo of the foreclosure notice she'd attached. That house meant everything to them. It wasn't a mansion, but it was the symbol of their status. Their pride. Their last thread of control. And it was slipping through their fingers. I waited 2 days. Then I called their bank anonymously. I asked about the debt. The exact amount. The terms. And then, without even blinking, I paid it off. Every last cent. I didn't tell a soul. No receipts. No signatures. No "Love, Peggy." Just silence. I wanted them to wonder. I wanted them to feel the fear of losing everything, and then the confusion when it didn't happen. For weeks, I said nothing. They kept reaching out. Not to thank me, of course. They didn't know it was me. But I watched from a distance as they spiraled. They asked neighbors for money. Tried to take out a second mortgage. Sold furniture. Held a yard sale. It was like watching a bad play where the actors forgot their lines. Then one day, they showed up at my building. I live in a secure place, doorman, elevator key access, the works, but somehow they got in. Probably sweet-talked the guy at the desk with some story about a dying aunt. When I opened my door, I didn't fake surprise. Mom. Dad. What a surprise. They looked tired. Hollow. Not their usual smug selves. Dad coughed. We need to ask something. I raised an eyebrow. Go on. Mom wrung her hands. Someone paid off our debt. We don't know who. It wasn't the bank. It wasn't Chase. We thought, maybe it was you. I smiled politely. Why would I do that? Dad flinched. Because you're, successful. So? I said calmly. Silence. Look, Mom said. We know we've made mistakes. We were just trying to help Chase get ahead. And me? I asked. When exactly were you helping me? More silence. They didn't have an answer. Just desperate eyes and wrinkled pride. I leaned against the doorframe, cool as ice. Maybe it was a stranger. Or karma. Or maybe someone just wanted to help out an aging couple drowning in their own bad choices. Dad clenched his jaw. If it was you, thank you. I tilted my head. If it was. And then I closed the door. Not slammed. Just closed. Quiet. Final. They stood there, I imagine, for a while. Confused. Humbled. Powerless. It was the first time in my life I saw them without their masks. And that was only the beginning. Because if they thought that was the extent of my revenge, they were in for a much ruder awakening. After I shut the door in their faces, I stood in the hallway for a long moment. Not because I felt guilty. I didn't. I was soaking in the silence. The kind of silence you only earn after years of being talked over, walked on, and treated like your only value was your bank account. It was peaceful. But my story wasn't over. You see, while they were scrambling and guessing who saved them, I was already planning my next move. Because petty revenge is satisfying, sure, but strategic revenge? That's art. First, I hired a lawyer. Not for anything dramatic. Just to create a little distance. I had them draft a statement making it clear I would not be financially involved in any future family emergencies. Legally binding. Signature required. I emailed it. Attached to a digital gift card to their favorite steakhouse. Sarcasm pairs beautifully with dry-aged ribeye. No reply. 3 days later, Chase texted me. Chase, so, you paid off the house? Why didn't you tell us? I didn't reply. Chase, seriously. If it wasn't you, then who? Mom's going crazy. That part made me smile. Let her spiral. She always said I was too sensitive. That I overreacted when she forgot birthdays or called me selfish for not giving her my Christmas bonus. Now she could feel what it was like to be ignored. But here's the thing about revenge, when it's good, it multiplies. It doesn't just make you feel powerful. It makes them feel powerless. And I wasn't done yet. I knew they'd eventually crawl back, but I didn't expect them to show up at my job. Yes. My job. I knew they'd eventually crawl back, but I didn't expect them to show up at my job. Yes. My job. It was a Friday. I was prepping for a client pitch, coffee in hand, when reception called. There's a Mr. and Mrs. Greaves here to see you. I nearly spit my latte. I walked down to the lobby calmly, heels clicking like I was on a runway, and saw them standing awkwardly near the water feature. Mom wore too much perfume. Dad looked like he hadn't slept. Seriously? I said, not even trying to be polite. We just need a minute, Mom said, eyes pleading. Please. I sighed. You have 60 seconds. Go. Dad cleared his throat. We think someone might be targeting us. Someone pretending to be generous, but really trying to embarrass us. Embarrass them? That wasn't even the goal. But now that he mentioned it. Oh. I said innocently. How tragic. Mom stepped closer. It's cruel, Peggy. If it was you, this little game isn't funny anymore. You're making us look like fools. Now we were getting somewhere. I'm not making you look like anything, I said, keeping my voice low. You did that all on your own. You don't understand, Mom snapped. We've had to explain to everyone how the house magically got saved. We told the Andersons it was a clerical error. We told Pastor Dave someone donated through the church. Do you know how humiliating this is? I blinked. So, someone paid your debts and didn't ask for credit. And your takeaway is humiliation? She opened her mouth, then closed it again. I stepped back and smiled. Time's up. Don't come here again. As I turned to walk away, I could hear Dad mutter under his breath. She used to be grateful. That's what it always came down to, wasn't it? Control. They didn't mind using me. They just hated that I wasn't dependent anymore. That I had options. That I could say no. That I had power. And so, I leaned into it. I started dropping breadcrumbs. A letter from an anonymous donor arrived at their door. No return address. Just a note that read, "Consider this a lesson in humility. You're welcome." Then came the community notice, a small update in the neighborhood newsletter about a private donation made to save the Greaves residents from foreclosure. Subtle. Just enough to get tongues wagging. They couldn't trace it to me. But they knew. And that uncertainty? That drove them wild. A week later, my aunt called me. One of the few relatives who never treated me like a walking credit card. She was laughing. You'll never believe what your mother told me, she said. She thinks she has a stalker. Some mystery benefactor trying to teach her a lesson. Oh. I said, sipping wine. Fascinating. And your dad swears Chase did it. Which is hilarious because that boy can barely pay for Wi-Fi. The chaos was delicious. But then something unexpected happened. Chase showed up at my place. Now, Chase and we were never close. He treated me like background noise. The older sister who worked too much and smiled too little. But that day, he looked scared. Not scared of me. Scared of reality. He sat on my couch and said, "They're unraveling, Peg." "Not my problem," I said flatly. "Come on," he said. "You made your point." "Did I?" I asked. "Because I don't remember sending a message." He stared at me for a long second. "Why didn't they ever see you?" That caught me off guard. He wasn't asking for money. He wasn't defending them. He was just confused. A grown man finally realizing that maybe, just maybe, the parents who babied him weren't the saints he thought they were. "I don't know," I said quietly. "But I stopped needing their approval a long time ago." He nodded slowly. Then said something I'll never forget. "I wish I had walked away sooner too." That night, I sat on my balcony, watching the skyline flicker in the distance, and thought about everything they had taken from me, time, energy, peace. And everything I had taken back. I didn't want revenge just to hurt them. I wanted them to feel what it was like to beg and not be heard. To be scared. To be at the mercy of someone else's choices. And now? They were right where I wanted them. But the real finale? That was still coming. Revenge should never be rushed. It should unfold like a fine-tuned symphony. Quiet. Calculated. Cold. By the time my parents started isolating themselves from their neighbors, I knew the shame had settled in. The newsletter had done its job. People were whispering. Speculating. And worst of all for them, pitying. In their world, being pitied was worse than being poor. I didn't hear from them for 2 weeks. Then came the dinner invitation. Yes. After months of ignoring me, then accusing me, then borderline stalking me, they suddenly wanted to reconnect over a nice family meal. At their house, of course. The very one I'd saved. I accepted. I wanted to see it. Not just the house. I wanted to see what they looked like now, humbled, exposed, unsure if the rug might be yanked out from under them again. When I arrived, Mom greeted me like I was royalty. "Peggy. You look wonderful, sweetheart." She hadn't called me sweetheart since high school. Dad even hugged me. Chase was already there, stiff as a statue. He met my eyes and gave me a tiny nod. He knew. He wouldn't say it out loud, but the truth was settled between us like dust on furniture. Dinner was some overcooked roast, mashed potatoes, and awkward tension. They tried small talk first. Asked about my job. My apartment. My dating life. It was like watching actors perform a script they barely rehearsed. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. "So, we've been thinking," he began, reaching for his glass. "About the future. Here we go." Mom jumped in. "We're updating the will." Again. I kept my expression blank. "Oh. Yes," she said, smiling too wide. "And we realized, maybe we weren't being fair before. That's what they called it now, maybe." Dad added, "You've done so well for yourself. We're proud." Really. The sarcasm in my veins itched to burst out, but I stayed quiet. Mom kept going. "We want to make sure you're taken care of too. You know, when we're gone." I leaned back in my chair. There it was. Their fear. Not just of losing money, but of losing relevance. They knew they were no longer needed. And people like them, people who cling to power with shaky hands, don't survive irrelevance well. "Interesting," I said calmly. "I thought I didn't need anything." A beat of silence. Mom tried to laugh it off. "Oh, honey, that was just poor wording. We meant you're so independent. So capable." I raised a brow. "So capable you wrote me out entirely." Dad rubbed his temples. "We made a mistake. We're admitting it." I smiled. "And now that your reputation's slipping, your neighbors think you're broke, and your only hope of social redemption is my good graces, suddenly I matter again?" They froze. The table was quiet, except for the slow tick of the wall clock they'd had since I was a child. I stood. "Let me save you the trouble," I said, placing my napkin gently on the table. "You don't need to rewrite the will. You don't need to pretend we're close. And you certainly don't need to thank me for paying off your debt. I didn't do it for gratitude." Mom's lip trembled. "Then, why did you?" I looked her dead in the eye. "So you'd know what it feels like. To be terrified. Helpless. Humiliated. And then saved, by someone you thought was beneath your appreciation." They sat in stunned silence. I continued, "But don't worry. I'm not coming for the house. I'm not asking for inheritance. I don't want a single thing from you." Dad leaned forward. "Then what do you want?" I walked toward the door. "Exactly this," I said. "This dinner. This performance. This desperation. I want you to remember every bite of this meal and choke on the fact that the daughter you underestimated is the only reason you're still sleeping under your own roof." And just as I reached the front door, I turned around. Oh, and one more thing, I said. I left something in the mailbox for you. Then I left without waiting for a response. I didn't drive home. I walked. Slow. Steady. Letting the breeze hit my face like applause from the universe. Now, what did I leave in that mailbox? A printout. Of the mortgage statement. Zero balance. Highlighted. With a sticky note that read, "No money for me? Fine. But now, no secrets for you." I knew what that would do to them. To their pride. Because they hadn't told anyone how deep their debt really was. Now they had proof. In writing. I didn't publish it. I didn't blackmail them. I just let the truth sit. In their hands. Heavy. Unignorable. They could either continue their charade, or finally admit that the daughter they pushed aside was the only one who ever truly had their backs. Spoiler, they chose silence. They never responded. Not a call. Not a text. Nothing. And I was fine with that. Because silence is powerful when it comes from those who used to talk down to you. Months passed. I moved on. Got promoted. Bought a second apartment, investment property. And this time, my name was the only one on the deed. Chase moved out of their house. Said he needed distance. We get coffee sometimes now. He's starting to see things clearly. As for my parents, I hear from mutuals that they still host dinners. Still try to pretend they've got it all under control. But the sparkle's gone. The gossip has slowed. The pity has turned to avoidance. Their kingdom crumbled quietly. No fireworks. Just a quiet collapse. Exactly how I planned it. You see, revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge is letting them live. Live with the truth. Live with the fear that you might one day decide to speak it out loud. But I won't. Because their silence is already loud enough.